Clubs out this weekend, I think. I'd like to welcome Doug Flornay, new member to our club. Doug, welcome. Do we have any happy bucks today? Warren?
I'm getting a bucket. Anybody happy today? Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Ed?
Turned 36 Tuesday.
Is it the truth? I'm happy to say I know Don Samuelson. Anybody see the article in the paper? Yeah. This week?
Yes.
Retiring after a few years in the Army band and all that. It was a fabulous article and very proud to say.
I got the dates wrong though, because I'm just 2 years younger than him.
He was born into the military, see?
Congratulations, Don. That was a nice article.
Anybody else happy?
Thank you, Warren. There is a slip there on the tables for a proposed member you'll take note of. Also, this coming Tuesday, the 29th, we will be having our monthly fellowship social again. Starts anytime after 5, runs till about 7. So stop by. It's over here in the middle lounge. Stop by, have a drink. It's a great opportunity, especially for the newer members, to come and get better acquainted and find out a little bit more about Rotary. So try to make it. I'd like to have a real short board meeting following this meeting for the board members here. Jay Mitchell would like to say something about the membership directory.
Yes, we're trying to keep the membership directory online updated, and we'll do printouts as we update them. So what I'd like to do is pass around a printout of what's on the website, and if you would just make sure that your information is complete, and by complete we're talking about what we want is a home address and phone, and if you have an email at home, and then a business address and phone, and an email at work as well. So I'll just get this started. If you can just make the notations, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Jay. Also, Amber would like to say something on the Valentine's Day party.
I put these on each of the tables, and they're just FYI today. And I did mail out invitations to each Rotarian yesterday, so you should be getting those in the mail. And I'll send around a sign-up sheet next Friday and the following Friday concerning the Valentine's party. It should be pretty fun.
Okay, thanks. Let's see, Lee, would you like to make an announcement?
Good afternoon. I would like to tell you about this letter that I took copies in the high school. We got this letter last weekend at a Rotary retreat for exchange students in Iowa. And our chairman, Laurie Miller, he read us about, and this letter really touches me because we face the same problem in my country. And this is about a girl. She's an exchange student from the Rotary Club of Iowa City. And she is right now being hosted by Argentina Rotary Club. And she's doing an awesome job there. Because Argentina has this very bad crisis, economical crisis, and a lot of people are suffering about hungry and stuff. And she's doing an awesome job. And so I was interested in helping her, maybe bringing this to our club, and I took the copy. So if you guys want to take one and read at home, it would be really nice. And maybe some other Friday we could bring it down here and talk more about that. So that's it. Thank you.
There's copies up here, up front, if anybody wants to get one after the meeting. Finally, next week's program, we are going to have a recognition luncheon for the donors to the Lord's Cupboard. Pat Sullivan's been really the driving force on this, and it's really becoming a great project for Rotary, raising this year over $7,600 for the Lord's Cupboard. So we have some certificates we'd like to present to those people, and so try to make it. I think it should be a nice meal and presentation. As I mentioned last week, this past Wednesday, the 23rd, our club celebrated its 82nd birthday, which I thought was really neat. And so today, to further go into more detail about that, Jim Dunleavy and Fred Flinchbaugh are going to give us a little bit of information about our club's history. So I'll turn it over to them.
So in case you wondered why I am an official historian along with such a young man as Fred, I wore this. I found it when I was looking for artifacts, and we have a lot of the old historical documents out on a table, and you're welcome to come up and look at them afterwards. So what was this? It was all of the Rotary past presidents. This was one of a program such as this where we were looking backwards. And we all lined up. The young ones, and then those ones that were president in the 50s and the 40s and so on. And now I look at that list, and there isn't anybody to my left. That gives you a little. So, I received the classification of somebody named James Fred Clark, who was a surgeon. And they were happy to fill that because there hadn't been any new doctors in town for a while. And so the first thing I'll do is tell you the medical part of the founder of the Fairfield Rotary Club. This comes out of some documents that might crumble as I read, but James Fred Clark, born in Fairfield, 1864, attended Parsons College, graduated B.S. University of Iowa, 1886, M.A. University of Iowa, 1889. Graduated then from the Medical College of the University of Pennsylvania. 2 years of postgraduate work at the University of Pennsylvania hospitals. Postgraduate work at Johns Hopkins and the University of Göttingen in Germany. Several seasons at the New York Postgraduate School. Dr. Clark entered the Spanish War as major and surgeon in the 49th Iowa Infantry. Detached service in charge of medical wards of the 2nd Division Hospital of the 7th Army Corps in Florida and Cuba. While in Florida, Dr. Clark obtained the first employment of trained female nurses in the United States Army, 1st MASH unit. Dr. Clark organized Unit R for World War I and served as, interesting, when this was written, it was not World War I, of course, it was the World War. Served as Major and Lieutenant Colonel in France and at the base hospital number 32 at Contrexeville and the Red Cross Hospital number 5 in Paris, both of which hospitals he commanded in the final weeks of this service. He was a lecturer of hygiene at the State University of Iowa Colleges of Medicine and Dentistry. He lectured at Parsons College. Dr. Clark was in the main responsible for the building of the Jefferson County Hospital in Fairfield. He served as mayor of Fairfield. He represented this county in the General Assembly in 1906 and 7. Has twice been vice president of the Iowa State Medical Society and president of the Des Moines Valley Medical Association and the Southeastern Iowa Medical Society. He's a fellow of the American College of Surgeons, the Iowa Academy of Science, the American Medical Association, made the first X-ray picture in Jefferson County, did the first appendectomy. He introduced organotherapy for the state of Iowa for people born with cretinism, giving them desiccated animal thyroid. Was for 30 years the local surgeon at the CB&Q. He was the first president of the Iowa Assembly of the Agassiz Societies, the founder of the first golf club west of the Mississippi, in which you are now eating, the founder and 3 years president of the Fairfield Rotary Club. We finally get to us. He loves to study fungi. That was our founding father. I didn't know who I was following when they gave me his badge. But we can all be proud to follow his lead. Now, what did we do with it? Well, the Fairfield Rotary Club, starting in 1920, immediately embarked on courses of service. And one thing that I did not know about until I delved into the past was that during the Depression, for instance, they ran a milk program for indigent kids. This preceded any of the New Deal programs or any of the programs that followed. While our children needed the milk, they quietly provided it. What did you do in the Depression to buy milk? Every one of you, as you came in today, would have been asked for a contribution by a very young secretary named Bill Stever, who would also always put it in a verse form. And some of those are collected on the table there, and you can, because he had a new verse every week. Mary had a little lamb, his fleece was white as silk, and that's because he followed her to school and drank her milk. Well, it won't last forever as poetry, but just think, you had to have a new one every week. 1926, they started something called the Rotary Christmas Parade. Was that important? Let me tell you a story. This is from the 50s. We had just had a flu epidemic, and we're harvesting the post-flu pulmonary complications and had a hospital full of very ill children. There were 2 4-bed wards in the old 1912 addition that Dr. Clark had built, and at 5:30 on Christmas Eve, I was up in one of those 4-bed wards, sitting with parents of a very ill child in a steam tent while we were giving him intravenous antibiotics, which itself was a little risky in those days. The big light and sound came from the parking lot, and the children that were well enough, eyes got big. And while the high school carolers were singing down below, we could hear Frank Pearson coming down the hallway. Frank did not need to have padding for his, and he enjoyed. He was the first Rotary Santa Claus, and if you can imagine, by the 50s, he had put in a lot of years of doing this. He came into the 4-bed ward after he'd seen patients all along the hallway, and I heard him mutter, "Oh my God, I don't have enough." And the little kid in the steam tent looked woebegone as he realized Santa Claus went back out the door and hadn't given him his present. You heard the running of the feet down the hallway. And he didn't wait for that ancient elevator we had in the 1912 building, ran all the way down to the parked car, got the bag of candy, ran up the stairway again. And the look of appreciation on that child was sort of the beginning of his healing. To complete the story, I spent 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. at Frank's bedroom as he was having his first coronary, and I'm sure it was from running back up the stairway with all of his weight. In those days we couldn't call a lot of EMTs and so forth, but we could call Rotarian Cedric Raymond and his brother, and they arrived and said, "Jim, yeah, our pallet won't make the corner of that stairway." Well, I was 4 inches taller then and a lot stronger, so I said, "Okay, put up the pallet downstairs," and I carried Frank down and stretched him out. We got him to the hospital and made sure that he enjoyed several more Christmases, but not as Santa Claus. So those of you who are asked to pad your middle, few of you might not have to, but, and be Santa Claus, let me tell you, the first one was really Santa Claus. So what have we done for the community since? Well, now we're getting to the areas where most of the people here in the room can identify with. The Lord's Cupboard is an extension, I think, of what we did for the hungry children. And this, maybe the poor we have with us always, but at any rate there seems to be different ways that we can help. And we found a good one now. The painting of a house that even preceded Habitat, I think was an excellent move on our part. The scholarship programs, especially with the Bill Stever Scholarship being offered, is a highlight of our exchange and high school honoring programs that stretch way back to our beginnings. We can be proud of what we have done over the years since the local club began. Most of it is because we were set on the right track by those that started it. Fred is going to talk a little bit about some of those people. I will fade away here by reading one more time Bill Stever's famous Norton joke. Now, this won't seem exceedingly funny to some of you, but let me set the stage. Bill and Esther Stever were childless, but they took care of each other, and I was honored to be allowed to take care of Esther in her home, and it gave me an idea of what gracious living was like. I would have to wait sometimes because supper was not finished when I'd make a house call. And the silver service and the lit candles and the good linens made me think, boy, this is really nice. But on the other hand, what would you be saving it for? So why not use it? I try to remember that. After Esther died, we kept Bill in the extended care unit at the hospital for another couple of years, and I had a chance to visit with him often, and we had him write down the Norton joke. Okay, for those of you who never knew Bill, think of a young Mark Twain, not the world-famous author after he moved to Connecticut, but the river rat in Missouri. I am fond of music, but a terrible musician. I have the reputation of having the loudest untrained voice in Jefferson County and of knowing more words and fewer tunes than anyone in southeast Iowa. That, however, was not the case with my great-grandfather. Now, a lot of you have heard me mention the old gentleman, bragging about what a crack shot he was, what a swift runner, what a fine swimmer, what a high jumper, and a good cook. But I don't believe you've ever heard me say anything about his musical ability. My great-grandfather was really a very talented musician. As a matter of fact, he was a Norton player. Now, you seldom see one of those these days. The Norton is a Pennsylvania Dutch instrument, and its chief and distinguishing characteristic is that it is 27 feet 4 inches long, and the only way you can play it is to blow in both ends at the same time. Now, you may have guessed by now that when a Norton is being played, you don't hear much music, but you see a hell of a lot of action. My great-grandfather had an older brother, Jethro, who was 2 years, 2 months, 2 weeks, and 2 days older than my great-grandfather, and 2 inches shorter. He also was a talented musician and likewise a Norton player. In the early days, they were known as the Norton team. They were doing well and getting good billing all over the state. And my great-grandfather, always seeking to improve their act, decided that they should have a harpist, one of those that pluck on the strings, to accompany them. Now, his older brother Jethro was dead set against this move, but my great-grandfather finally prevailed, and as a result, he hired Sadie Clapsaddle to accompany them on her harp. Now, Sadie was an excellent harpist, and her playing greatly improved their act. And they were getting top billing all over the whole country, and then it happened. At 3:40 one afternoon, August 24th, they were playing in Veracruz, Missouri. My great-grandfather was playing his Norton and dashing madly from one end to the other when he stumbled over a pony keg. That's what I said, he stumbled over a pony keg. And he fell through Sadie's harp. Well, they put him in the local hospital in rooms 212 through 218. When they finally got him laminated back together, he said, and I quote, "I believe I will give up Norton playing because I don't think there's any future in it." Now, if I may digress here just for a moment, appearing on the same stage with them was, with my great-grandfather, his older brother Jethro, and Sadie Clapsaddle, was a troupe of trapeze artists calling themselves Shadrach, Meshach, and Schwartz. They had a business manager named Abednego, but he didn't take any part in the act. They didn't last very long. They were not good athletes. Now, to return to my great-grandfather, after he had been completely repaired, he said, and again I quote, "I believe I will give up Norton playing because I don't think there's any future in it." He was right. Now, you can look this up in the classified section of any telephone directory in Iowa, and I defy you to find the name or address of one single Norton player. Fred, try to class this act up a little.
I've got a big pair of shoes to fill, don't I? Rather than a short history of the club, which I included in the new member packets when I was secretary, and I assume is still the custom, I'm going to describe some parts of the early club's history in more detail using actual names of former members. For 20 years, Dr. Clark was the spark plug of the Fairfield Rotary Club. Even with the report on November 24th, 1939, that he and R.B. Loudon, which I assume is Roy Loudon, were both in the hospital with broken hips, which at that time required a lengthy recuperation. Dr. Clark was back for a program for Ladies' Night on February 9th, 1940. At the February 23rd, 1940 meeting, Art Tollering read the history of Rotary as written by Dr. Clark. If anyone knows of a copy of this history of the first 20 years of Rotary in Fairfield, please let me know so that I may copy it for our records. We do not have a copy. At this same meeting, Art introduced Roy Loudon, who presented a talk on Rotary's mission for the future. Roy was also back. Dr. Clark liked to have stunts performed at as many meetings as possible. Some incidents staged by Rotarians included elopements, pursuit by irate parents, escaped convicts, inmates from Mount Pleasant, and bank robbers. These were staged in the public dining room of the Leggett Hotel, much to the amazement of other hotel diners. The more bizarre the stunt, the better it was received. The first meeting in January of 1924 included a stunt to reinforce the concept of fellowship. A stranger came staggering into the hotel dining room, apparently defying the Volstead Act. He wandered drunkenly from one Rotarian to another. Since the dining room contained not only Rotarians, but other diners, many Rotarians seemed ashamed to have anything to do with this man, who loudly insisted he was a visiting Rotarian. No good Samaritan would offer him a hand. Finally, Don McGiffin found him a seat and quieted him down. When Vice President Roy, who I assume was Roy Loudon, called upon Don to introduce his guest, Don responded indignantly, declaring, "He's no guest of mine." When the truth came out, everyone had a good laugh at Don's expense, as the guest, who was acting inebriated, was actually an Ottumwa Rotarian by the name of Roy Kimball, who proved to be an excellent singer when he performed several vocal solos for the program. When Fairfield Rotary Club was formed in January 23, 1920, attendance was not emphasized. After about 2.5 years, attendance began to be stressed. By the time of Roy Loudon's presidency, July 1st, 1929 to July 1st, 1930, the club had a 98 and 2/100% attendance, with an average of 54 members. For 11 out of the 12 months of that year, Fairfield led its division in the district in attendance. Furthermore, on 3 different occasions during that year, Fairfield was among the high 5 in its division for all Rotary clubs in the United States and Canada. Roy reported that he listened with pride to references to the Fairfield Club's attendance, which he heard in various Rotary circles. Attendance was not stressed during World War II due to the gas rationing and other more pressing matters, and thus attendance declined during this time. During our next history lesson, we'll probably hear about Brother Paul Harris, that is. We have a table over here, and if you have any questions, you can talk with us over here. We'll have you go maybe by tables or whatever and start looking at the various things we have laid out here. Thanks.
I just want to say that early on, the professor of music at Parsons played during the Rotary meetings. After that, Bill Medley, part of the Medley duo team, professional concert goers, concert givers, was a member of this Rotary Club. This is a recording taken of Bill playing for us. There wasn't much conversation at the tables, and everybody would just listen to this fellow without music playing. So, why don't we close the meeting? It's about that time, and then everybody's free to come and listen to Bill and go over the artifacts.
Thank you, Bill. It's very interesting, and obviously we have a tradition of excellence to uphold, so thank you. Just a quick reminder on the social on Tuesday, try to make it. And if there's no other business, let's stand and close with the four-way test. Is it the truth?